I gotta say, man, the current political climate has me really confused. I'm really confused about what's gonna happen with the future of the Democratic Party. You know why? It's because of the progressives, bro. I mean, I didn't realize this before, but I'm starting to realize it now because I've always voted with Democrats and I've been very far left, and I've gotten more far left kind of as I've grown older. Now, at the same time, though, I've never had a resentment that the Democratic Party has not moved that far left. I've not had that situation. But man, recently, looking at like a lot of progressives, and especially now post-Gaza and Palestine, the progressives like hate the Democratic Party, especially the ones who were like deeply over the barrel for Bernie Sanders. They literally hate the party they're in. And so I don't really understand what their future is. Like, what is the future of the progressives in the Democratic Party? I mean, it's something that we need to talk about, because if they stay in the Democratic Party, I think all they're going to do is lead to lots of Republican victories, because they do nothing but bash and attack and hate their own party, and their own party's not moving all the way out to the left where they want them to go. So you got to wonder, like, are they going to start their own party, or are they going to just bash the Democratic Party and leave people with Republican leaders all the time? I'm super curious about it, because becoming part of a party and then hating that party and just tearing at it from the inside the whole time, they're never going to achieve their goals. If their goals are to win elections and pass meaningful legislation, it's not going to happen if they're eating their own the whole time. A lot of people have irons in the fire. You have the insane progressive wing, like numbnuts over here. He wants to go to the Democratic National Convention and have some open voting thing. A lot of progressives are talking about this. An open convention, some mystery nominee. I don't understand what's good about that. If you look at it, all the people voted in the primary and they selected Biden. If you look at the Democratic primary, dude, he cleaned up, bro. Look at the number of votes. Nobody provided any sort of challenge. People came out in force for Joe Biden. Now, what I don't get, guys, is this. How is it that progressives, who are supposedly like all about democracy, how is it that progressives want to now have a bunch of delegates that we have no idea who they are? We didn't vote for any of these delegates. They want a bunch of delegates to just go to a convention, or just have a bunch of rando delegates just pick a presidential candidate out of a pool of people in a hat? Like, why would we do that? I don't want some random delegates from Oregon that I don't even know going to a convention. Like, I want the delegates picking the president that we voted for, period. You know what I mean? So what are they talking about? That open convention talk. That, to me, that's insanity. Dude, it's wild, bro. And then, to be honest with you guys, I look at some of these super progressive people and I think they're trying to shoehorn Bernie in there. They think they can still get Bernie to be president. I'm serious. Part of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party are still like Bernie bros. I shit you not. We're witnessing like the Bernie bros are like MAGA. They are. They're obsessed. It's been 8 years. They hate the Democratic Party because they feel like it diss Bernie, who's not even a Democrat. Like, I understand why the Democratic Party shoehorned Bernie out. He's not a Democrat. He's been nothing but divisive to the party. Why would they help him? They're not going to help him. Right? He's not helping them. He did nothing to help Hillary. He's making their party more split. Why would they help him? I just don't think Bernie could actually win a national election. I think when you get out of the white rural Midwest, not everybody in the cities, and certainly not the people of color, a lot of women, they didn't like Bernie. These guys are calling for an open convention. But this is insane, bro. That's where people are going with this. I'm telling you, dude, it's people like this guy who is super disappointing. This guy is a far left voice, but this is really what it's about. These guys are like rabid dogs because they've made their entire personality anti-Biden because of the genocide. And now he's their candidate and they're freaking out because at the end of the day, what are they going to do? If he's their candidate, they have to vote for the genocide guy to beat Trump. And they're really mad about that. And they're going to blame it on the Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, it's real easy. It doesn't matter about Biden's cognitive condition. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, you can choose to get excited and cast your vote for anyone. There's a whole bunch of Republicans that are excited and casting a vote for a sexual abusing felon. They're like, let's get this guy in there. We could easily be backing Biden and showing support for him and saying, yes, we hate Joe, but we're voting him in to beat Trump. And then once we get him in there, we're going to protest his every move. But at least we're going to be able to protest without the military coming in and putting us in a concentration camp. But they're not, though. They're trying to tear at them. And that Kate Willett, I don't know if you know who she is, but she is insane, bro. I'd never heard of this woman, but she has made her whole personality about this. I absolutely think Republicans would do all the same things Biden is doing, but I'm not sure they could get away with it. A Trump genocide would meet massive public outrage. This genocide has had liberals running PR, suppressing the opposition, giving it a social justice veneer. Like, what is she doing, dude? She's insane, bro. Her whole personality has become about it. I've gotten into some arguments with her a little bit because she's just been a negative voice the whole time. But there was something where she said, like, look at her, dude. She's just sitting here tweeting all day about, like, anti-Biden. She's supposedly a Democrat. Like, I really think that these far lefties think that if they sink the Democratic nominee or if they sink the Democratic Party here, it's going to somehow benefit them. But they're clueless. It's really shooting themselves in the foot. Oh, here it was. So Chris Matthews says Biden should hang in for a couple weeks. We owe him that. And here's what she said. She said, we don't owe him shit. After we voted for him because he promised to restore decency, he owed to us not to blow up a bunch of babies. That's what she's talking about. I mean, Biden didn't blow up the babies there, Kate Willett. It was Netanyahu that blew up those babies. And I imagine there's some people on the other side that blew up some babies too. To follow U.S. and international law to fight back on the fascist overreach of SCOTUS. I don't know what she was expecting him to do to the SCOTUS. Like, what's he supposed to do? Send out a hit squad? You know what I'm saying? This whole thing of like, we don't owe him shit and saying he blew up the babies. She's living in a fantasy land. Biden has had a very, very complicated situation of like, how do I handle a number one ally to the U.S.? The U.S. and Israel have been allies for a long time. As long as I remember, we've always been an ally to Israel. So having been an ally to somebody for the entire history, it's pretty hard for a world leader to just sort of turncoat on one of your allies. If U.S. turned our back on Israel, every other ally of ours would think maybe we would do that to them too. If we are a staunch ally of Israel for 50 years and all of a sudden we turn on them, you think Germany's gonna feel safer? This is crazy. But see, here's the deal, boss. This is not a criticism of a candidate because Joe Biden didn't blow up a bunch of babies. Joe Biden maintained being an ally to a country that we have always been an ally to. And he did it with some reservations and trying to make a difficult decision. How does he support a longtime U.S. ally? But the thing is here's the problem. You ready? The problem with this woman, Kate Willett, is she is sitting on Twitter watching video after video after video of babies dying, and she's being severely traumatized by that, as I would imagine anyone would. If you watch a whole bunch of videos of babies dying all day long, you're going to be mental. You need some EMDR. You need to go talk to a therapist. But I don't think it's as simple as Joe Biden just saying, you, Israel, we're not going to support you. I don't think it's that simple. And you have an entire Congress of people that pass these support bills that send money and weaponry over there. And if the U.S. turns its back on Israel, Ukraine's like, wow, well, we're next. And then Germany's like, wow, maybe if Russia doesn't stop at Ukraine, maybe U.S. isn't going to back us either. It's just not that simple. And this is not helpful, because this isn't Kate Willett questioning her presidential nomination. This is Kate Willett being savagely hateful, equating her party's candidate with being a war criminal scum, and giving the man no credit for how difficult the decision is, because from her apartment that is on land that was taken via a genocide, by the way, let's not lose the irony in it, but from the cushy confines of her apartment, she's able to see how easy it would be to unilaterally just tell Israel to f off, and with no thought of how that might affect every other U.S. alliance in the world and other people's alliances with each other. It's just not an on and off switch. I just don't see how this helps, because now she's been doing this, and these far lefties have been doing this for 8 months. And now they're about to blow up the entire goddamn Democratic Party. They've basically made the candidate the voters voted for untenable, and they've become the Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress. They want to create a shit show. They want an open convention now, some sort of reality TV spectacle at the Democratic National Convention, because they hope maybe they can get their guy in there. After they talk about Joe Biden being too old, they want to put a 90-year-old Bernie Sanders in there. Like, bro, what the is going on? That shit pisses me off, bro. I'm serious. I see a portion of the Democratic Party that are far left. They are Bernie people, and they've hated the Democratic Party since 2016. Maybe just voted for Democrats in 2020 just in protest to get Trump out of there. And so they're angry and they're resentful and they hate the Democrats. But dude, they're lying. They're all in on this cognitive decline, foaming at the mouth. But really, their whole thing is about Palestine. And when in fact, like, dude, what do they think? They think if Kamala Harris wins, she's going to like cut off Israel? Ain't going to happen. Are you shitting me? What dream world are they in? I just know for one thing, I don't want a random delegate picking my presidential candidate. Not a chance. I don't think most people do. And look at this, though. You see this? Already, they talked about Biden stepping down, right? And look at what they got. They're already out for Kamala Harris's head. Dude, I don't understand what their end game is. But we got the New York Post calling Kamala a DEI president. We got the opinion people now already going after Kamala Harris. And I've seen people talking about Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders being the ticket. Dude, the far left has gone apeshit. They're so toxic. It's almost like, who needs Republicans when you got the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, bro? And that's not going to change my far left belief system. But after this election, I feel like there's actually going to be a significant difficulty of the far left working with the Democratic Party from here on out. It's become very obvious that progressives hate the Democratic Party. Their resentment for it is off the charts. Let's say Biden does step down. Let's just say all these rabid lefties that are flipping out about Gaza, Biden steps down. Let's say he does. He steps down. So then Democrats, what do? Kamala Harris, she's the new one, right? She's our candidate, right? There isn't really any other option, is there? The war chest, they're like 400 mil, goes with Kamala. So she would be the candidate, would she not? It really is the only answer, isn't it? This open convention thing can't really happen, can it? But anyway, so Biden steps down and whatever. Say they get their dream candidate. Say they get Bernie Sanders. Let's just say they get their open convention. They get Bernie Sanders. The delegates, the fix is in. They pick Bernie. They put Kamala Harris as the VP. Say they were able to do that. I don't even know if that's possible, but say that happened. Okay, well, let's go. First off, every black voter in America would be done with the Democratic Party. They would be done. They wouldn't even show up and vote. If they put an 85-year-old, they get rid of a guy for age, and then they put an old socialist, Bernie, who they didn't like in the first place. They didn't like him 8 years ago or 4 years ago. If they ran Bernie, okay, the black voters would be out of the election. Election over. They're not even going to show up. You off. So there you go. Now you put Bernie in, you just lost all the black vote. Now what we have, though, is we're going to have 4 months of savagery while they attack Bernie. And they dig up all the sexual harassment scandals. And they find women who worked for him, you know, back when he was campaigning. And he did have these issues. But these scandals are now going to be 24/7 in the media. They're going to go after the women who don't like Bernie because women don't like Bernie. A lot of women didn't. And there was a lot of like misogyny accusations. That will run 24/7 on the burn. Okay, they're going to grind it up. They will not relent. In addition to story after story saying how the Democratic Party has done something historic and they caved. They got rid of the nominee that won 90% of the votes in the primary. And they offed him because the party is in disarray times 20. And there's a renegade faction of Palestinian pro-Hamas people that have executed a takeover of the Democratic Party. Again, this is not my feeling. This is what the press is going to do. They're going to spin the Democratic Party as having been taken over by Hamas. How do you think that's going to play to the independent voters in middle America? What do you think? You think it's going to be a landslide over Donald Trump? Like any of you progressive, Cenk, humanist report guy, those of you that are out there like talking about this shit, Anna, you guys have any thoughts on this matter? About how that is going to play out? Like, honestly, I really want to know. Have you been thinking this through? Just because you guys hate Biden so much over Gaza and you are like frothing at the mouth to get rid of him and you're angry at the Democratic Party because they took Bernie away from you. They stole Bernie, who could never win a primary because most of us didn't want Bernie. But now you got your dream scenario. Are you ready to look at how that's going to play out to the rest of the world? Like you think the whole world is you, but it's not. Even many of us that have far left, we want Medicare for all, we want free education, we want UBI, but we don't want to blow up the entire goddamn Democratic Party and become the popcorn reality TV show 4 months before an election and just get our asses handed to us because you guys cannot let go of the fact that you feel like Bernie deserves to be your candidate. That's the thing that I wonder. The numbers say Bernie beats Donald. Yeah, but the numbers always look rosy before the campaign starts. The numbers say Bernie beats Donald because Bernie's never campaigned against Donald. The numbers said Hillary beats Donald too, by a long shot. But then the campaign happens and the numbers change. Bernie's never campaigned against Donald. Bernie always was getting numbers against Donald when somebody else was campaigning against Donald. So when Bernie was tearing apart a candidate and that candidate was running against Donald, Bernie beats Donald. But Bernie's only beating him because Bernie is like, you know, campaigning against the person actually going against Donald. It's two very different things. You know what I mean? I mean, a week ago, we were seeing numbers that say Kamala Harris beats Donald, and they've already started attacking Kamala, and she's not even campaigning yet. The thing, though, that's really super hard for me to sort of figure out where we go from here is because I don't feel like people are necessarily being honest. You know what I mean? Like, in particular, I've been looking at these voices like Cenk. You know what I mean? Like, what's his fucking end game? I think Trump can put everyone in jail. Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're all worried about Trump being president. But here's the deal, though. I don't want to turn into an autocrat trying to defeat an autocrat. That's where it gets really slippery. Nobody wants Trump president, but we have a candidate that was voted in by our party. So if we really believe in democracy and we really believe in this two-party system we have been participating in and the integrity of these elections, we need to go and just vote our candidate in and win the election. But we have parts of the Democratic Party wanting to do things that are very autocratic, saying we're going to go to our convention and we're going to override the will of the voters and we're going to override our primary candidate and like oust him because some people are really angry at him, and we're going to let a bunch of unvoted for, unelected delegates select our presidential candidate against the voters' will, and nobody has a say in this, and they're just going to have this big party takeover, force out the candidate, and just get a brand new guy in there that nobody voted for to beat an autocrat. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? Like, yeah, we're just going to sort of have a coup of the Democratic Party because we're worried about this guy who's going to have a coup of America. But we should be looking at why is there part of the Democratic Party that wants to have a goddamn coup of their own? You know what I mean? It's like we made our bed. We had a primary, and Joe Biden won that primary convincingly, and he's our candidate. And whether he's soft or touched or weak on his faculties, we committed ourselves. If you're a Democrat, you committed yourself to your candidate, support your party. And if you're not, and you don't want to support your party, you can't really blame the party. You got to say, all right, well, we're going to get Trump because we refuse to vote for our candidate. But to blow up the goddamn electoral process of our party, I don't really see how that's okay. I mean, how is that different than Trump deciding to not have an election in 2028? The Democratic voters voted for a candidate. Joe Biden's the nominee. This is the party. Let's do this. But we have a bunch of people that are saying no. They want to like blow that up. They want to remake the rules to get rid of the candidate they don't like 3 months before an election. And so if that happens, what's going to happen the next time they don't like? Is there going to be now every time we have a Democratic election, there's going to be a threat of like party takeover? Like, goddamn, dude, I don't want to do that every election. It's like either vote for the Democratic candidate or off and don't vote. And then don't cry when Trump gets elected. I don't know. It's just really hard. There's no optimal fix. But yes, I'm worried about a Trump presidency, but I'm equally worried about this idea that 3, 4, 5 months before an election, a small faction of the Democratic Party can try to nuke the candidate we voted for. I have real problems with that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever people that have made Palestine their whole personality are now thinking they get to blow up the Democratic Party because they're mad about U.S. foreign policy. I don't really want to live in that world. I don't know that I want to live in a world where my vote doesn't count because of a faction of my party can just blow up the candidate right before the election because they didn't get what they want. Like, how is that different from the people storming the Capitol? How is that not real similar? Except they're doing it like before the election. They're like, hey, you know, do this or else. And they're trying to use, it's like they're trying to use the fear of Trump as a way of sort of like strong arming into making the Democratic base do what they want them to. And to me, that feels really dangerous in an entirely different way. Because when I look at what MAGA did to the Republican Party, I don't want that in the Democratic Party. I don't want to have some loudmouth reality TV burn the whole building down if we don't get our way faction gaining power in the Democratic Party. I don't. I'd rather kick them out and be like, F off, go start your own party. The thing that's really hard that I'm trying to square is I have incredibly progressive values. Okay? I do. I have progressive values. Very, very like socialist values. But I also don't hate the Democratic Party. I don't hate the Democratic Party for not being socialist. I want to make the Democratic Party more socialist but I don't want to destroy the Democratic Party in the process. But like, I don't think some of these progressives like the Democratic Party. I think they actually hate the Democratic Party. And they think if they damage it like brutally, that they're going to get some leverage and be able to sort of take it over.